Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Checkered Flag Corner. I know it's a late one. Power went out with about 30 or so laps left in the race, so I finished watching the race on my phone and went out to dinner. So better late than never. But without further ado, let's just get into it. We just finished watching the Phoenix Cup race a few hours ago. Let's talk about it. First and foremost, I think it's obvious at this point who the championship favorites are. William Byron, Christopher Bell, they've both had amazing seasons so far. William Byron would win stage one, and the first stage of this race was very interesting. Of course, we had a few cars get into a wreck. The 41, the 47 would get into an accident. They would continue on. Catherine Legg, who is the first woman to compete in the Cup Series since 2018, she lost control of her car coming out of turn 2, but it's very common when you're not used to running these Cup cars, especially the Gen 7s. Now, on the restart, Joey Logano took to the inside. He picked the inside at the choose cone. And he went below the yellow line just before the start finish. And they didn't know if NASCAR was going to flag it, but sure enough, NASCAR called it a restart violation, and Joey was not happy. On the radio, he even said, even if it was only a little bit. But sure enough, there was a restart violation. He had to come and do a pass-through penalty serve, which that sent him back in the field quite a bit. Took him out of the equation for a while. William Byron would go on to win stage one. Stage two was very, very interesting. During the early part of stage two, Ryan Preece would come through, and he would be, well, he might have been in stage one. It's been a few hours, so forgive me. But Ryan Preece was the first to take the option tire, which, if you didn't know, at Phoenix this year, the spring race at least, we had the option tire, which is the red letter Goodyear tire. It's a softer compound, and it was very clear to see just how good that tire was. After putting on this tire, Ryan Preece was passing 4, 5, sometimes even 6 cars at a time. He then made his way up to first. He was leading for a while, but he pitted late in the stage, gave the lead to Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell would win stage two. Now, there was another crash that I want to talk about for a sec. There was an 11-car pileup, I believe in stage 2, that took out 2/3 of Spire Motorsport, the 7 and the 77 of Justin Haley and Carson Hocevar, respectively. It looked like just a bunch of cars not really giving each other a place to go, checking up a little bit too much. Took out 11 cars in this pileup, and most of them would not go back onto the track. Shane Van Gisbergen was caught up in it. Brad Keselowski was caught up in it. A very interesting crash. I mean, the big one hit at Phoenix, of all places. So that's what struck me as weird in this race. You don't really see pileups of that capacity at tracks like Phoenix. So, very interesting race today. But we get down to stage 3, and by this point, Joey Logano has worked his way back to the front. Now, before we get to Joey Logano, I want to talk about quality control. In practice, Riley Herbst was saying that he was feeling a strange vibrating sensation coming from the car, and he thought it was a power steering issue. The team then thought that it was some kind of phenomenon related to the option tire, something that comes with the softer tire. And because after a while it went away from Herbst's car. Later on in this race, however, Tyler Reddick started having that same problem. And the team even told him, Riley had the same issue in practice. We think it's just something that comes with the soft tire. Just ride it out, see what happens. Tyler was sure that it was a power steering issue, which inevitably it was, because eventually the power steering gave out, which is not good. Most of the Toyotas had issues today. I want to make that clear. There was a power steering issue on Reddick's car. It's believed that the brake rotor that brought out the caution for debris was actually from Bubba Wallace's car, which I believe that too. I believe that's why the tire blew the way that it did. So there was brake rotor issues, power steering issues, And Ryan Blaney even said that he thinks his engine is about to go. And sure enough, it did. A bunch of smoke under his car. The engine just gave out from underneath the car. Blew his engine, has to come in right about the same time that Reddick had his power steering go out completely. They said on air that there is one company that is responsible for the manufacturing and the quality control of these parts for the Gen 7 car. And they even said at this point something has to be said, something has to be done, because there's obviously an issue. They've been having trouble with these parts since before Daytona. At Daytona, just before the Daytona 500, all of the RFK cars had to have parts swapped out because they weren't working. And, we've had brake rotor malfunctions in the past couple of years, power steering failures, engine failures. We've had problems with cars going airborne, which that's not a parts malfunction, that's a design flaw. But you get the picture. The Gen 7 cars, while the racing has improved greatly, the safety has taken a back seat, unfortunately. And that's obvious. Ryan Preece even said at Daytona, at some point, something on these cars is going to break and somebody's going to get hurt. Which I have to agree. And it's a shame that we're saying that about these race cars again. But I do believe it in my heart that somebody's going to get hurt to a point where they can't do anything anymore. I mean, we've already seen a driver's career ended. Kurt Busch at Pocono a few years back. He was on what he hoped to be turning over a new leaf with a brand new team, got a win for Michael Jordan, was on top of the world, then a few weeks later at Pocono, backs it into the wall, and that's it. Career's over. Something's got to give. Because if we're not careful, one of these days, there's a good chance that one of these drivers may not walk away from the accident. And I hate that I have to say that, but I believe at this point it's true. With all the parts malfunctions, the design flaw of that underbody that makes the cars go airborne, it's... Now, you might think I'm blowing it out of proportion, but look at the amount of violent flips that we have had in the past, 5 years. In 2020, we had Ryan Newman. Now, that was Gen 6, but I'm going to count it anyway because some of these parts were on the Gen 6 car. The aerodynamics are flawed, and of course, you get to Ryan Preece's flip last year at Daytona, or was it the year before last, and of course, this year at Daytona. And it's not even just the Cup Series anymore. There's been violent flips in the Xfinity Series, too. So you have to ask yourself, when is it going to be too much for them to take? When is it going to be enough for NASCAR to step in and say, okay, we need to rethink this and figure things out? But sorry about my little tangent. Let's move on, because if I don't stop now, I'm going to keep going. But yeah, as I was saying, race today was still pretty good, very competitive, especially when we had 20, 25 drivers all on the option tire. Very equal. The option tire was definitely the preferred tire for most teams. Only 2 sets, though. A lot of teams used them up pretty quickly. I want to make it known, Ty Dillon had an interesting strategy. He was moving up towards the front of the field, and he was saving both sets of option tire until the last stage, which he did eventually switch. Of course, cautions, pit stops, and everything got in the way of that strategy, and I think he still ended up with a top 20, so not bad, not good, but not bad by any means. Joey Logano used up his option tires, and they even said on the broadcast, if we get a caution, Joey is going to find himself in a world of hurt because he won't be able to really do anything with any set of tires to come back. Which, it's true, he didn't. He sank like a rock. He fell back like Kyle Busch normally does, and I hate saying that because I love Kyle Busch, but I mean, come on, Kyle hasn't been competitive in a couple years now. Let's just be honest with ourselves. But, yeah, the number 20 team of Christopher Bell, back-to-back-to-back wins. Atlanta, Circuit of the Americas, and Phoenix. Christopher Bell, 3 straight wins. He is on a roll this season, and he's definitely an early championship favorite. Definitely, I think he's going to contend for a championship this year. Fantastic drive at Phoenix. If they can drive like that this fall, if they're in the championship 4, Bell is going to finally get that Cup Series title. The 20 team has been working extra hard to produce good results for Coach Gibbs and everybody at JGR, and their hard work is definitely paying off, and it shows. It definitely shows because they've been working better as a unit. They've been stronger as a team and faster as a corporation, as a camp. So the 20 team working extra hard, and their hard work is paying dividends at this point. Let's see if they can make it 4 straight at Vegas next week. Unfortunately, I want to talk about William Byron, the pole sitter. He had a strategy going. He was trying to pit and make everything stretch, try to cut that last stage in half. Unfortunately, as he was in the pits, Bubba Wallace blew his tire because of the brake rotor malfunction, and he got screwed over, had to go to the tail end of the longest line, as Clint said like 900 times on the broadcast. So that really screwed the 24 camp out of a decent finish. Of course, they did bounce back. I think they finished in the top 5, so overall not bad, but they very well could have won this race had things turned out a little bit better. But if you ask me, going by the numbers of what we've seen the first 4 races, the championship race, I believe, is going to come down to the 24 versus the 20. I know it's a little early to call it. We're only 4 races into the season, but you look at the speed of the 24, you look at the hard work and speed of the 20 team, those are the 2 biggest contenders that I see being in the championship for this year. Very much so. And if I were a gambling man, I'd put my money on Christopher Bell, but I'm not going to put I don't gamble, so. But with that said, interesting race today. Very good racing, very competitive all around. We look ahead next week to Las Vegas as we end our West Coast swing. And then after that, after Vegas, of course, we go back east to Homestead, I believe. It's either Homestead or Martinsville, but I'm thinking it's Homestead. So Vegas is next week. The 20 team usually does good at Vegas, especially the last couple seasons. So we'll see if they can make it a 4 straight win streak. But yeah, with that said, that's going to do it for this one. We look ahead next week to Vegas. 3 straight for Bell. What a fantastic race. What a fantastic season for them so far. So until next time, we will see you in Victory Lane.